right, it's instant classic time at the Dr. Duke Show, where we try to give you something uplifting about to counter the stupidity of what's going on in education in America and around the world. And this is St. Augustine week, the week we look at the uplifting words of St. Augustine. He was born in 354 AD, died in 430 AD. He is the first great father, quote unquote, of the Christian faith. He was a pagan. He was a Roman through and through. He lived in Africa. He was a professor of classical pagan literature. And when he found Christianity, largely by the influence of his mother, who is Saint Monica, his mother became a Christian first, and she kept pushing her son to turn his immense intellect to consider this new religion. And when he finally did it, Monica did a wonderful thing. She converted to Christianity, one of the great minds in human history. And here's another one of those great quotes from Augustine. I ask you this question. Are we, with all of our confusion and amorality and all of our social justice, are we closer to the truth of reality, or was St. Augustine 1,600 years ago? He's talking here about that passage in the Gospels where Jesus condemns wealth, where Jesus says, it is harder for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven than it is for a camel to enter the eye of the needle. And yet, Augustine does something really interesting. He says, Jesus basically did not condemn wealth for wealth's sake. Wealth is not the problem. It is your attitude towards wealth. And Augustine comes back and brilliantly points out, if you're poor and have a bad attitude, you're just as bad as the rich man. Here's what he says. But just a minute, Mr. Poor Man. Consider whether you can, in fact, enter the kingdom of heaven. Are you going to get in? What if you're poor and also happen to be greedy? It's called socialism, right? What if you're poor and you're greedy for other people's money? What if you're sunk in destitution and at the same time on fire with greed for what everybody else has? So if that's what you're like, Mr. Poor Man, whoever you are that are poor, it's not because you haven't wanted to be rich, but because you haven't been able to. In other words, you'd be rich if you could. You're greedy. You want what other people have. You don't want rich people to go away. You want to be rich yourself. It's not because you haven't wanted to be rich, but because you haven't been able to become rich. So God doesn't inspect your means. He will not look at your balance, your bank balance. He will observe your will. So if you're poor and want to eat the rich, if you're poor and want to take back what they've stolen from you so you could live a high life, you're not the kind of poor man that's going to be saved.